To begin, a quote from Matisse. Je ne crois pas qu'un artiste soit jamais arrivé. Quand un artiste se développe, il évolue jusqu'au but. On est constitué de 1000 choses auxquelles on doit renoncer et on acquiert encore plus que l'on laisse derrière nous. Il faut atteindre la connaissance de l'essentiel. The story that I'm about to tell narrates two great artists' quest for the essential, the essence of place, painting, and self through colour. Between the interwoven brushstrokes of French modernist Henri Matisse and acclaimed Australian landscape painter Elizabeth Cummings, we will see how colour steers our two artists around the world and illuminates new ways of seeing. Vibrant, pulsating vermilion, flirting with iridescent cobalt blue, stitched together by the seams of linen beneath. Blue, white, and red. Three colours creating a dialogue between France and Australia. In 1958, as a young graduate of the National Art School, Elizabeth Cummings received the New South Wales Travelling Scholarship to visit Europe. Settling in Florence for 10 years, she immersed herself in the early Renaissance works of Piero della Francesca and absorbed the modernist principles of Bonnard, Vuillard, Cézanne, and of course, Matisse. At the School of Seeing in Austria, instructed by the expressionist Oskar Kokoschka, Cummings learned how to translate an expressionist lens to visions of landscapes, still lives, and interiors. Returning to Australia in 1968, she spent the remainder of her artistic career assimilating the principles of her predecessors until they were no longer a borrowed visual language, but instead an authentic part of her own lexicon. Like a deeply embedded root structure, this early teaching offered both a framework and a vibrant source of wisdom from which her own expressionist sensibility could flourish. In a conversation with fellow artist C.U. Garside in 2016, Elizabeth identified the following of Matisse's studio paintings, known as his symphonic interiors, as well as his late cutouts, as key influences on her own practice. This inspiration is evidenced within her collage-like approaches to both landscape and still life painting. By looking at three works, Journey Through the Studio, Through the Window, and White Billabong, we will see how Cummings uses the compositional devices of Matisse like a syntax for her own autobiographical paintings of place. Firstly, Cummings learns from Matisse the use of colour as a means of structuring space. A contemporary reinvention of Matisse's L'Atelier Rouge, Journey Through the Studio, produced in 2004, builds upon the avant-garde techniques of the original while touching on its two key themes, the passage of time and the studio as a self-portrait. Journey Through the Studio is an immersive 3-metre-wide diptych, a tapestry of oil on canvas. The work is a vision of Cummings's home in the bushland of the Darawal people at Wedderburn in New South Wales. The artist first visited this land in 1971, setting up a tent studio in the hope of reconnecting to the Australian psyche and landscape upon her return from Europe. Converted into a permanent dwelling in 1974, Wedderburn became the touchstone for the next 50 years of her artistic output. Journey Through the Studio presents a portrait of the place, as if it is the lifeblood of creativity. The left-hand canvas illustrates a dark-tinted vision of dusk. Cool vermilion unifies abstracted objects, a dresser of jugs and bowls, innumerable stools, chairs, and tables, indistinguishable from the walls and floors. While synchronous with its partner, the right-hand canvas is bathed in the glow of mid-morning. Its cadmium ground offers a balancing warmth to areas of burgundy shadow. A continuation of the space, the surface is filled with ordered chaos. The clarity of certain objects, the carefully noted cuff of a jumper, for example, or a pair of unfolded glasses propped against a coffee cup, give the painting a bodily warmth and intimacy, as if we are stepping into the still warm shoes of the artist. The objects create a still life portrait through the 5 senses. Within Cummings's work, 2 blue-toned scribbly gums float on the right-hand side. These are balanced by eucalyptus grey patches across the scene, grounding us like coordinates to the southern hemisphere. On the other hand, the specific colour red combines both a sense of homeliness with the bodily sensation of excitement and a flavour or memory of the exotic. Like Matisse, Cummings draws upon excursions from around the globe, including trips to India, Turkey, Hong Kong, and Morocco, and distills these memories like grounds of pigment into single colours. Cumin, sumac, and cinnamon are released with each red stroke back in the studio. The result is a sense of pictorial hybridity, embedding multiple places within a single motif. Journey Through the Studio is an extension of Matisse's rejection of Western systems of single-point perspective. Planes of cool red are unconventionally recessional, creating a toing and froing front and back. The planarity of Matisse's work owes its origins to Japanese wood block prints of the Edo period, introduced to Matisse by the Australian Impressionist John Peter Russell in the late 19th century. Matisse was also influenced by a set of Persian miniature paintings witnessed at an Islamic art exhibition in Munich during 1911. These shifted his understanding of pictorial depth, space, and patterning. A key example of Matisse's newly inspired decorative and flattened approach is Intérieur aux Aubergines, painted in 1911. A puzzle of frames and panes, it oscillates between pattern and place. Navigating the image through an expanse of blue floral wallpaper covering both walls and floors, the scene is a sea of illusion. A still life of pears and aubergines is perched on a central tablecloth. Matisse manipulates the perspective of the display, painting the fruits as if from above. A trick of trompe-l'oeil, the objects appear to topple at the viewer's own feet. Instead of meticulously striving for mimicry, Matisse applies a single brushstroke to create an illusion that draws attention to the viewer's own space. This playfulness and bending of truth is evidenced also in the false translation of objects in the large mirror to the left-hand side. Another strange reflection appears in a patch of lilac rolling hills above the central screen. The mastery of this image is the way in which Matisse stitches together decorative surfaces and illusory perspectives to create an overall image of harmony. The work demonstrates how Matisse modifies forms according to their interaction with neighbouring colours to create an image of completeness, purity, and serenity. Its subject is therefore the nature of painting itself, as a composed vision of place. The colour blue functions symbolically as a portal into which the viewer must enter to fully comprehend the artist's search for balance. Elizabeth Cummings builds upon Matisse's exploration of pictorial space in the monoprint Through the Window from 2011. A fabric-like synthesis of geometric purple, green, and cobalt shapes composed around a central window, the indoors and outdoors converge on the common denominator of abstraction. Capitalizing on the innate flattening effect of monoprinting, Cummings uses the pane of the printing plate to draw attention to the window as a threshold. Like the partition in Matisse's Intérieur aux Aubergines, the window offers an allegory for painting itself, an optical illusion in which distant views become part of our interior space. Through the Window was produced in a similar fashion to Matisse's paintings. Originally making sketches en plein air, Cummings uses her sketchbook as a prompt to complete her works from memory back in the studio. A cipher of note-taking from an unknown location, Through the Window is an improvised arrangement of colour. A patch of lime green Sydney grass meets scribbles of Queensland mauve. Undiscernible objects are scratched onto the plate. A water pump, poles, fences, a grid seen from above, perhaps. Like a jazz score, the work meanders off-piste, composing elements of the indoors and outdoors into a pattern of order specific to the print itself. Drawing from Matisse, Cummings creates a bacchanal of colour, where pigment can be enjoyed free of its representational function. Ultimately, both artists demonstrate a self-awareness of the end point of painting, as an interior window to the artist's world. The previous works, Journey Through the Studio and Through the Window, are examples of interior landscapes, where motifs of the outside and inside converge on the painting's surface. The following painting is an example of a landscape as an interior, offering a privileged insight into Elizabeth Cummings's memories and deeply personal experiences of place. White Billabong from 2002 uses colour as both location-specific and reminiscent. Searching through a white border of boughs and tree trunks, the viewer is plunged into a confusion of floodwater. Daubs of autumnal colours swirl in a haze of cream and grey. A mangrove, scored into the paint in the top left-hand corner, offers a hopeful horizon on which to rest the eye. A fleeting glimpse of electric ultramarine pulls the eye downwards. The chosen blue is incongruous with the pool of white, like a memory of a distant harbour. As in Matisse's many vistas of the Mediterranean, framed by hotel interiors, ocean blue pushes out of the canvas as a focal point to draw the viewer in. A swamp of black on the top right-hand corner acts like a raft with which to anchor the eye. Our perspective is inverted, as if looking through the hollow of a tree and a crater from above simultaneously. The result is the disorientated sensation of being lost on country. The title of the work, White Billabong, references the pool of stagnant water formed after a flood. Having fled l'alluvione, the great flooding of Florence in 1966, as well as experiencing firsthand the effects of bushfires and flooding at Wedderburn, Cummings's life and psyche has been shaped by the natural world around her. She approaches landscape painting, therefore, with a respectful humility for its unpredictability and power. Referencing the bark paintings of Yinpanari artist Kitty Cantilla and the work of Yolngu painter Nyapanya Yunampingu, Cummings recognises the wealth of knowledge of First Nations people and her own limited experience by comparison. Seeking out teaching from elders on the lands on which she visits, she integrates her own observations, memories, and feelings with these lessons such that her works surpass mere tokenistic acknowledgements of country. Attempting to find a sense of stillness through the act of painting itself, White Billabong seems to be a translation of the artist's own search for an anchor upon the earth. The spheres of our two artists' agendas meet at these divergent quests for harmony, one personal and unashamedly unanswered, the other universal and totalizing. The white border framing White Billabong resembles Matisse's final cutout, L'escargot, from 1953. In L'escargot, an orange edge creates a circular motion, unifying a jostle of bright, almost geometric shapes of solid colour. Like a premonition to hard-edge abstraction, the subject of Matisse's work is the illusion of space through colour and shape alone. Interestingly, the collage is anchored by nearly identical hues of blue and black seen in White Billabong and through the window. Like a topographic vision of continents, the colours within the image are the contents of every corner of the globe. Matisse completes his quest for a painterly theory of order, as if finally reaching the origin of a centripetal force. Elizabeth Cummings's is similar, but different. Her vision is tied to the singular landscape of Wedderburn, where colour is both a plumb line to her present location and a point of departure through memory. Using Matisse's compositions and spatial logic, Cummings amasses a collage of colours to find a sense of pictorial understanding of her place upon Australian soil. Her paintings demonstrate a haptic assimilation of French modernist principles and the works of Matisse, until they have become part of her bodily memory and brushwork. Combined with the humble respect for the deeply rooted spiritual connections of First Nations people, as well as her own significant experiences of country, her practice demonstrates an authentic, cross-cultural understanding of place, nature, and order. Nurturing the seeds of French modernism within the soil of Australian art history, Cummings has taught and continues to teach us what it is to be students of Matisse today. As with Matisse, so with Cummings. Painting is the arena to make it alive. Thank you.